What's up, everybody? This is my 4L60 transmission rebuild video. Might break it up into a couple parts. This transmission is out of a 2002 GMC 1500, and I lost reverse. So all forward gears worked, but reverse did not. Well, I assume all forward gears, first and second at least, did, but definitely lost reverse. So I'm going to do total rebuild. It's got 224,000 miles on it. As you can see, the transmission fluid there is completely black, not red at all. So I guess that's clutch material. Not really entirely sure. This is the first time I've ever done a project like this. And I'm definitely no expert, but I figured I would take a video and just kind of document everything, and that way everyone can see what I'm up to these days. So definitely not a tutorial or any sort of educational video, because this is the first time I'm doing it. I have almost nothing to offer as far as knowledge on these transmission rebuilds go. So sit back and enjoy. This is day 2. Got pretty much everything on the pan side off. All laid out here. Everything's labeled and organized. So far, up until this point, I can put it all back together with memory. So today we're just gonna start pulling everything out. I had to order a puller to get the pump out. The book said that you could try to pry it, so I didn't bother buying a puller. And couldn't get it out by prying it, so I went ahead and ordered a puller, and it's here. So I'm gonna try and finish getting the rest of the pump out, and then we'll continue the teardown. My plastic shed enclosure is working pretty well. I drilled a hole like right there so that it would drain into the bucket. That way my work surface was, at least it wasn't a big puddle like it was the other day. So that worked pretty nice. Here I am pulling the pump out. I should have taken the bell housing off before, going any further. That would have made taking this pump out a whole lot easier, because it turns out the pump was actually just stuck on the bell housing. But I had stripped out one of those T55 bolts, and I, didn't want to try removing them further, but I really should have just, taken them out. I do that later on when I put everything back together, but you can see parts starting to stack up. Just pulling everything out of the housing here. You got the reverse input drum and input drum there sitting on the cart. We're just getting everything taken out so that I can start inspecting everything and seeing what I need to order. Alright, transmission's empty. And we got all the parts laid out. So initially, based off online research, I thought that the sun shell was stripped out, but as you can see, it's perfectly fine. But what is wrong is in here. I don't know what this is called, but this little collar broke off from this, and I'll get better detail later, but I'm assuming that's our problem. Alright, I did a little bit of research, and so this is called a reverse input drum piston. And basically, you got springs that push down on this side, and it pushes a clutch pack. So you got fluid pressure on the back side here, And one guy mentioned that it's very rare, but it does happen to where this cracks and breaks. You can see this collar broke, and it's got stress fractures around the perimeter here. So I ordered a new one of them. Fortunately, they are pretty cheap. It's like 20 bucks for this, the springs, and the snap ring down there. I've already got all the seals and everything. So, and he did say when this goes out, reverse goes out. So, pretty sure that's our problem. Now it's time to rebuild the front pump. And again, never done anything like it, so watch a couple videos and we'll do the best we can. I got a sprayer here filled with mineral spirits, so hopefully that will help clean it up pretty good. Let's get started. Alright, the pump is done over there on the other table. Now we're going to work on the reverse input drum. We got a new spring and then a new piston. This one is not cracked and not broken like this one is. So should just be able to throw some new seals on this and slap it all together. Here I'm checking the fit of the bushing that's in the reverse input drum, and I didn't like the way it felt, so we're removing it so I can replace it with a new one. Doing both sides. I'm hammering them in. I didn't have the proper tool, so on some of these bushings I kind of had to come up with a smart solution, like using a socket or something like that to drive these bushings in. And then on this particular bushing, you're supposed to file down the edge here so that it can slide on to the pump without damaging the Teflon seals. Here I'm loading the springs up. I kind of had to use some clamps. I didn't have a proper tool for this. Alright, reverse input drum is officially done. New clutches, new steels, cleaned, new bushings, ready to go. It's time to disassemble the input drum. Here I've got all the parts laid out. Just inspecting everything, making sure there's no damage. And I think actually most of this I end up replacing just due to wear and tear. Back at it again. This is like day 4 or 5, I don't know. I lost track at this point. Got the input drum completely disassembled. Got all our pistons and whatnot laid out. We're going to be replacing these three because these are prone to failure and wear out. So we're going to clean everything up, clean this up a good bit, and then start reassembling. Apparently one of the pretty common failure on these is this, I think this is called a 3/4 piston. It seals onto this right here, and the seal will go bad. So fluid will bypass the seal and it won't compress the clutch pack as well as it should. This one's not completely loose, but it's not very snug either. It's pretty loose, you can wiggle around easy. So that's the old one, and then here's the new one. If I put it on here, it's much tighter, barely wants to twist, and it's hard to pull off. So it'll be good to get new ones in there anyway. This is the forward sprag. I'm taking this apart just to check for excessive wear, and need to clean it up also. Everything's got this kind of black sludgy fluid in it from the old transmission fluid, so I have to make sure I clean every part so nothing's going back in dirty. Alright, we've got the input drum all cleaned up, shiny like new. That's clean. Got all these clean. All of these are clean. So we should be able to start reassembling it all. As I'm going through this, I'm following this book that I have on the left side there. You can kind of see it. However, that book is slightly outdated. I think the transmission he's using in that book is like a 97 or something like that. And this transmission's an 02. So obviously there's a few design changes. So between that book and a YouTube series that I've been following, you pretty much can do this all on your own with zero experience. So right here I'm putting in the forward clutch pack, and these have to have a specific clearance, minimum and maximum clearance of movement. So you don't want there to be too much free play, and you don't want there to be too little. As you can see, I'm measuring that, and this was way out of spec. I can't remember exactly what it was.
Well, guys, we are back at it almost like 3 or 4 weeks later because I had to order some parts. So this is the forward clutch pack, and there needs to be a certain clearance in the free play. And according to the book, it needs to be between 30 and 63 thousandths. And so I took some feeler gauges, and I was able to fit 65 thousandths all the way around in here, no problem. So it's too much free play, or too wide clearance. So they make these pressure plates in different thicknesses. Got all your different thicknesses here. The factory pressure plate measured 8.2 millimeters. So I needed to get an 8.9. I think that was going to give me like 27 thousandths thicker. So I ordered one that was 8.9 millimeters, and they sent me an 8.2. So I had to call them up, tell them that they sent me the wrong one, and then they had to reorder it. So finally, here I am, like 3 weeks later, with the proper pressure plate. So I'm going to pull the old one out, put this in, recheck my clearances, check that I'm within spec, and then continue on building this input drum. The other thing is this is a 3/4 clutch pack, and there's two different clutch pack or 3/4 clutch pack setups. There's one with thicker steels, and then there's one with thinner steels. And the kit that I got came with the thin steels, wherever they are. Not sure where they are, but it came with the thin steels, and those are too thick or too thin, and so my clearance was way too loose. So I ordered, I don't even know where they are. That's forward. Oh, are these them? Yeah. So you can kind of see the thickness difference in there. So I ordered the thick steel version, got those in. So we're going to be good to go on the 3/4 clutch pack, and hopefully we'll be done with the input drum here in a few minutes. Alright, we've got the 3/4 clutch pack put in. Tested all the clutch circuits, and they're working properly with no air leaks. And then I checked the clearance. The clearance on the 3/4 clutch pack needs to be between 35 and 83 thousandths, and it's right at 50. So we are good there. At this point, we're done with this side, so we can flip it over and start working on the shaft. All right, the input drum is done, ready for assembly. I've got the pump done, reverse input drum, and input drum are all good to go. So now we're gonna start kind of working on these odds and ends and get everything else ready. I've got the case washed about as good as it's gonna get. I don't have a pressure washer or anything like that, so just kind of hand washed. So we're gonna start working to assemble this thing. All right, guys, here's the rear planetary gear set, and unfortunately I've got a bad needle bearing in here. These ones are silent. That one is super noisy. So I gotta replace this whole thing. So once again, I gotta stop what I'm doing, order the part, and wait for it to come in. But fortunately, you guys don't have to wait. It's instant. Alright guys, new parts came in. They sent me all this. This is a used unit, but good compared to this old one. Everything spins nice and no excessive play. This one wiggles excessively, whereas all these are solid. None of them have any excess play. So we got a new rear planetary gear set, and then I don't even know what this is called, but we got a new one because the old one is all gunked up with a bunch of junk. And so I'd rather play it safe and go ahead and put a new one in. So here you can see the lower reverse clutches. If I blow air in here, you'll see this piston move up and apply the clutch set. I've got the low reverse assembly in place. Now we're just gonna keep on stacking up. I'm skipping over quite a bit of this because there's a lot of boring stuff like this where I'm just going through and replacing the old bushings just to make sure that everything's done right. Alright, so this is the new sun shell I originally bought, and then this is the original that was in the transmission. As you can see, it has no holes. The new one I bought has holes, and this is for the ones that have a thrust washer design, and those holes lock into these tabs for the thrust washer. The newer models have a thrust bearing that's set like this, and you know, I didn't know that going into this project when I bought this part. I didn't know that there were two separate types. I really want to replace the sun shell because, you know, I don't know how weak this is. GM had a lot of issues with their sun shells, either stripping the splines or breaking this collar off completely. And so I don't want to risk putting this back in and that happening shortly after. So I'd like to replace it with a heat-treated, you know, brand new sun shell. But I wasn't sure about the compatibility of the old one to the new one. So I did a little bit of research, and it looks like the dimensions are the same for both of them. One just uses the thrust washer, and one, the newer ones, used the thrust bearing. So I'm gonna go ahead and use the new one and roll with that, and you know, do the thrust bearing on this one. So let's hope it works. Now I've got the drum assembly put in. Now we're gonna move on to the band and the pump. All right, it was a bit of a nightmare because I had to take the bell housing off to get this pump back in, because the bell housing interference fits apparently the pump, so I couldn't get it seated properly. And then while I was doing that, I stripped out this bolt accidentally. I had to drill it out and use a bolt extractor. I didn't drill my hole straight, so somehow this came out. I don't know how, but anyway, got the pump installed. While I was leaning it down one time, I was kind of careless, and the parking pawl rod, whatever you call that, was stuck underneath, and I bent it, so I'm gonna have to pull that off and bend it back. But other than that, I think we were ready to do the servo, the valve body, and get this thing ready to put back in the truck.
Stay tuned for part 2 coming up right after this video.